Hey, this is Richard the Red. I wanted to show you how Momonacci works. I've been talking about this a lot lately, and it's being released, so it's drawing a lot of lines, and I just wanted everybody to understand how it works and what it can do and what it can't do. This thing is magic. I mean, it finds pivotal levels and then draws them in, and you can see it getting all of this respect. This is a 4-hour chart, 360 days, and I'll get into the ranges that work for this stuff, and why you would use them. But you can see it getting all of this respect still. So these are clearly levels that matter a lot. I mean, I think this here was an CPI, and so this was a news spike, and it top ticked it right here, and then came back down to this level. So all these levels are already in place. On the 4-hour chart here, we've got the darker ones are the 4-hour, and the brighter ones are the daily. So I have two Momonacci studies on here. And I make them brighter and darker by fading the colors back. Like all of my studies, you can go in and edit the study itself, and take a look at how it, at the bottom here, you can change these. And what I do is I go in here, I go into the one of these tabs and set the transparency down a little bit so it gets a little bit darker. You can see you can adjust that to whatever you want, and then set that as a default for that if you want to use it over and over again. Some of the other things in the study, when you first come into the study, it's going to default to chart period. And what that means is that if the higher period is set to chart period, it means it's going to use candles from whatever the current chart period is. So that means if you're on a 30-minute chart, then it's gonna use 30-minute candles to find the significant candles that it draws the lines based on. You can use a higher period than the current chart period, but if you're on a 30-minute chart and you hit 3 minutes, you'll see a little error, and it'll use the 30-minute instead, because it can't. That's a TOS thing. It can't use a smaller candle than the chart it's on, so you'd have to pick at least 30 minutes for that. So for a chart period on this, then it would be 4 hours, because this is a 4-hour chart. So if you pick 4 hours or just leave it as chart period, it's the same thing on a 4-hour chart. The range in this is chart range. So this is going to be 360 days worth of data. You can limit this, which means you can only have up to as many days, or whatever, as many candles as in there. So if you try to do this and try and get more range, like 720 days, and you're only on a 360 day chart, it's not going to work. You're only going to get 360 days worth of data, because that's all the chart has. But what you can do is put in 30 days worth of data, so that it will only draw the last 30 days. And this can help with processing. If you have multiple studies on a chart this long, you can limit them to the more recent ones. And also, the way it draws them is it draws the biggest 10 sets in the range, and then it draws the most recent 10. So you can see these daily ones. This is the reason it's a 360-day chart, is because these daily ones are being drawn from within the last year, and closer to the beginning of that range. If this were to be a 180-day chart, I don't think you'd get this top one, the 4177.25, which is right above the 4176 here. And that's just because it's not in that range. So that's something that you can do, is limit this. So chart is just going to give you the full chart range. Hours is however many. This would be 30 hours. Then there's days, and then there's bars if you want to be explicit about the number of bars that it's using. But generally, you want to default this to chart, and then adjust the chart range to pull those in, unless there are specific ranges you want to look for. And again, with a lot of my studies, you can pick a different line style to differentiate between having multiple studies on a chart. Like this has 4 hours and a day on it. I also like 2 hours on a 30-minute chart. I've got like a 2-hour as well as the 4-hour, and you can change the line style to fit that. You can also use other kinds of line styles. It'll ignore it if you change this to anything but solid, though. Or I'm sorry, it'll ignore this if you change this to anything but line. So if line type is not line, then it won't do the line style that's in this one. It'll just do whatever that line type is. And line weight is how thick the lines are, so you can differentiate. If you want a days to be 2 pixels wide, then you could do that here. The thicker line weight is for this applies to the most recent ones, and then the thicker line weight applies to the biggest ones in the whole range. And so that's how you can differentiate between those. And often the biggest ones in the range will be longer term, more stable, more powerful. Line labels are pretty cool. You can set these up to show at. I've been doing this with a lot of my studies too, where you want to know, let's say you have like 3 or 4 different studies on here, and you want to know which in particular go to which line, and then as we sit here and redraw, and this is one of the downsides of it, is that it's got a lot of chart data to pull, and I'm currently after hours, so it takes a little bit longer to load. But you can see these line labels have popped in now, and so you can see which are which. These are all the 4-hour ones. The daily ones should pop in pretty soon. Oh no, only it was the 4-hour one that I set line labels. Daily doesn't have line labels set on it. So you can see how price action respects this on the 4-hour chart. So I use the 4-hour levels on a lot of my charts, so I'll go into a 30-minute chart and have this 4-hour level on it, but the 30-minute chart you can't do as a 360 day. So generally what I'll do with that is have I'll do a shorter time frame. So like on a 30-day or 30-minute chart, I'll often do like 30 or 90 minutes, and then that lets it load a little faster because it's not as much data for it to collate. But the nice thing about using a higher chart period is that you can see the 4-hour levels on a lower chart, which makes it very, very tradable. So you can see these are all the 4-hour levels, and these are slightly different because it's a 30-day chart, so the range is lower. So these will be slightly different, but these are still totally pretty well respected. So these are going to be the 4-hour levels from the last 30 days, and that's it's usually pretty good to be able to pick up good areas to day trade from. For these, I've found a lot of success with the 2-hour, 4-hour, and day ranges on these, especially on a 180-day or 360-day chart. But it just depends on how far back you have to go to find candles that are in this range, and if there's no candles in this range, there is no lines for it to draw. That's why I have to use the 360-day chart, because it's that long ago that there were candles in this range. But for these ones, you can see they're drawing in much closer because we actually have data in this area, and it does still work off of these ranges. So these are just newer. That's all, which works. So that's the range there, and then one of the other things you can do with this. So if you look at let's look at something really ridiculously big, like a daily, let's go 5-year week chart. So we look at so we're looking at weekly candles, and you can see this is the errors that pop up where it's trying to use the 4-hour and daily levels on a weekly chart, and it'll just automatically give you the week instead. So this is showing up twice on those. But what I want to point out is this this chart is actually pretty cool. So for all of these weekly levels that have been in here, this is over the last 5 years. You can see it drawing these levels in. This was all-time high right here, and as it came down, it bounced off of one of these zones within, I think it was just like very within 10 points of the bottom. Let's just see what this was. So this was 3502, and that level was 3508.5. So it was under 10 points away from where it actually turned, which is pretty incredible. So if you'd been paying attention to this level, you could have caught the bottom of this, knowing that these are the major levels. And you can see how price bounces around in between them. So if this were like a daily chart, then let's look at like one year, one day. Actually, I think I have that as a favorite. So if we look at 1 year, 1 day, we should get that peak in there, but we won't see those other weekly levels because they're too far back. I mean, the range, it's outside of the range, so it doesn't draw lines for those because it only has the data that it can work with. So you can see again, there's only one error now because the other one is a day. So it took the 4-hour one and just made it a day instead. But you can see how well the price action is respecting these. This was created here, and this is actually a much older level than this even. It's just this is where it shows up on this side of the chart. And a lot of times these levels will redraw themselves as the chart moves forward because they're strong enough levels that it matters. I mean, you can see that this level was pretty well respected. This one, the 4176, has been just spot on solid. You could have been sitting here shorting this level the whole way down every time. A lot of these levels are the further away it is, the stronger it tends to be. But that doesn't mean that more recent ones can't be strong as well. It just means that price action, it interacts with them, but then may crash through and stop somewhere else. So this one's been here for a while, and it's starting to form a giant, inverted head and shoulders here, which is a good sign that it's going to just keep going up. Once it gets to this point, on the daily chart anyway, what I'm looking for is to start shorting on some of these other lines because, I want to make sure that as it's moving through here, I'm paying attention to the next higher level. So the day is going to be bigger, have more weight than a 4-hour, and so on down. So that's why with this one, it was, I was totally shorting this down, and then once it started poking through, then that this level is now going to look to come up and then retest off of this. So you could long off of this the next time price comes up and then back down to that. And it'll probably work because at this point, this is a triple top break here. This has been testing over and over and over again. So the next thing it's going to do is break through and retest from the other side. So if you look at the 4-hour 1 year, let's see. Well, let's do 180 days. Maybe that's enough room. Then you can start to see a little bit more detail on those because now our 4-hour is going to work again. And once you start getting familiar with these levels and how they work, you can start seeing the ranges that you can play and the ones that make sense, and also the recurring ones, the ones that end up having more strength. Like this 37.5 right here has been just phenomenal, and that's why when it came back down to this level, it had already tested the one down. The 1725 was another really big one, and as it starts holding on to these levels and taking them, bouncing off of them, probably what it's going to do is bounce off of the next one up. And so I longed this today and it worked out pretty well. You could probably short off of the top of this, but at some point this is going to break through, probably some point soon. So I'd stop shorting this at this point because, you could short all of this and that'd be great, but then at a certain point, and then you can see, it almost made it to this 4192, which tells you that it's got to reset and retest some of these as it goes down. So it crashed back through this one and this one, which is why I felt a little more confident to take this one rather than having it go all the way down to here. This is where it seemed like it would turn. So I have a 10-minute style that I'm going to pull up that shows more detail. So what we're looking for in the 10-minute view is going to be fine tuning on these bigger levels. So this is I believe it's a 2-day 10-minute. Yeah, so this is only the last 2 days worth of data. So you're not going to see all of those higher levels. But what I have on the 10-minute chart is I'm going to have a lot of indicators, and if it's too much eye cancer, I'll have to pull some of them off so we can see it a little bit better. Like these blue lines are Fibronacci, which is a different. This calculates mid candles of bigger moves. These diagonal lines are the auto trend line study. So this is like a basic chart that I trade off of this all the time. But you can see that it set up this 4174 level, and then we have a 7525 level from a little bit before that. So this would be the 15-minute level, and this is a 30-minute level, I believe. Some of these bigger ones might be 4-hour levels. Wouldn't it be neat if there were line labels so I could tell the difference? The other thing you can do is just right-click on it and tell you it's a 30-minute level. So these levels are actually pretty good for scalping off of. I mean, as it comes up through here, you can see that it gets pretty well respected, and even in here, there's not a lot of respect on the 15-minute here, but you can sort of see as it crashes through. That should give you some indication that you know, price is just going to keep going. But this is a move on a bigger time scale. These are the ones that are more important for this level. Like you can see them turning around here, and this is again. So 39.50. So this is on the both 30 and 15-minute chart. So these are going to be much stronger levels. So you look for the things that are being respected, like it's bouncing off the bottom of this, comes back up, retests it, and then when it comes back down, it's looking to break through again. When it breaks through, it retests it. So this, I mean, once it breaks through and retests, you could take this for a long, and if it goes up, then you know who knows where it goes. So that's how you sort of use the finer detail of it to do your trading from. A lot of the trading that I do is off of the 30-minute and 4-hour charts. So my 30-minute style is going to be a little bit different because it's got a lot more room on it. I think and I have a 1-hour chart that I believe is, yeah, this is also 360 days. So this is going to try and get a lot more of that range in there. And this is a lot of what I do on my trading day is I have all of these charts up all at once. And you can see that it's got these higher levels on it, 41.76. It doesn't have the 92 on here. Sometimes they don't all translate across, but you can definitely see this 64.50 is a good one. The 49.50, this is also a psych level, but you can see that Fibronacci hit it at one point here, and that makes it, this is a pretty attractive level to long off of, and I think I did in a lower time frame. And you can see that like it's picking out these pivots here. So that if price were to come back down here, you would expect it to interact with this level at some point. I do think it's probably going to keep going up though at this point, just because that's what it's been doing. But again, you know, I mean, so I have my 4-hour style that I tend to use for most of it, and that's got again the 4-hour and the day. So this is most of my trading decisions are based on these levels that it finds here. So I was definitely in at the 17.25. I was in at the it hasn't drawn it in yet. You do have to wait a little bit for it to pull in all of the data. It's not always going to be immediate. It's still loading all of that data. You can see if you try and like scroll off to the edge, it's not done loading, and it'll reset this when it pulls more in. During the day, it tends to be a lot faster about loading that stuff in. There's our 37.50. So this is the one that I ended up playing today. And it worked really well. So I think that this is a pretty exciting study because it has been just really accurate, you know, I mean, on every scale. And that's what's so cool about it. So just put a couple of these higher scales on your chart. Like you can see here, I've got you know, a chart period, which in this case is a 4-hour. So I have a 4-hour, then I have and that's a 30-day. And then I have another 4-hour that is chart. So this is going to pull in the biggest ones. The big difference between these two is that this is going to pull in the biggest ones in the last 30 days. And this one is going to pull in the biggest ones in the chart range, so 360 days. So I'm trying to overlap. So they're the same 4-hour Momonachi, but I'm going to get a little bit more data here, just because we're kind of in an anemic range up here. There's not as much movement. When there's a lot of lines, then you can use these ranges to sort of tone it down a little bit and pick out the strongest ones. But then again, I have my 1 day here, which is a huge one, and that's where we're getting these like the 77, 75, and the 76 that have been really important on this daily level. So give it a try. I would love to hear if it works for you and how it works. If you have any suggestions, also let me know. This is just the first release, and I've had a lot of beta testers looking at it, and so most of the bugs should be worked out. These levels are pretty solid, but just, you know, if anything comes up, let me know. And happy trading.